Time for another board recap podcast here to start 2024. How are you today, Dr. Smith?
Very good. Man, 2024, that has an interesting ring to it. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes,
next
it
year,
does.
we will think that a quarter of our century has already elapsed.
Absolutely. And it seems like just yesterday you pointed out in a meeting recently that we were all talking about Y2K and
Y2K.
what was going to happen with
Yeah,
that. And here we are in 2024.
that's
So
right.
really hard to believe. Well, here's we start this new calendar year. Let's jump into our first board meeting from last night. So, as always, we began with good news, and never a shortage of good news. Started last night just by talking about and just another thank you to those students. And if you're watching this as opposed to listening to it, you're seeing a screenshot of just a small group representing our honors orchestra. And these, I say students, they're really, I'm just going to call them musicians. They are student musicians, but their talent is off the charts. And I know you took great delight in joining them for our annual holiday video. And what was it met with just so many kind comments on social media because they really did sound fantastic. And I know you enjoyed playing with them.
I certainly do. Boy, that was a fun morning, and it's just a great example of what our students can do combined with our incredibly talented teachers.
Yes.
But what a community asset! And I think many of those comments really were one of, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea."
Right.
And
And just
so,
struck by just how outstanding these students
right,
perform. And I mean, they are extremely talented musicians. And you, with your background, certainly, and what you've done for many, many years, understand that level of talent. And I know you were impressed with them as well.
it certainly was, and just shows what good hard work can do for you.
Yes, most definitely. So thank you to them for participating. Also, announcement here right back before the holidays, and that was for this year's summer musical. It's the 36th annual summer musical. That's also hard to believe. And this year it's going to be Mean Girls, and that is sponsored by Old National Bank, EVSC, and the EVSC Foundation. But what a great experience this is every year for our students, a true professional production.
It really is, and it goes beyond just what you see on stage, but everything that is done to develop the sets, students that work in so many different facets, and none of this would happen without the incredible support of the EVSC Foundation and the title sponsor of Old National Bank. So we thank them for, oh my gosh, I don't know how many years they've sponsored this and that
Right.
title role, but it is certainly appreciated.
Right. So mark your calendars now, July 18th through the 21st at ONB Events Plaza coming this summer. So happy to look forward to that. Also, in good news, New Tech Institute High School moved into a remodeled facility on First Avenue. They've always been, they've worked out of a wing in the Southern Indiana Career and Technical Center on Lynch Road. And now we had this space available on First Avenue. So did some updating and remodeling to get ready for these students. And now they have their own dedicated space. It is a long time program now for many years, highly successful. And I just think it's going to take it to the next level with them having this new space.
Completely agree. Very excited for them. Boy, talk about excited. Staff as well as students and
Yes.
families. So for the first time in over a decade, they actually have a cafeteria. They have
Yes.
their own auditorium. They have their own gymnasium. They have an outstanding archery program, and I think frequent listeners will know that they also have the state champion robotics team,
Yes.
robotics first. Um,
And
so
they
it's
always made do with where they were and
they did,
thrived.
right.
Now they will thrive even more.
Absolutely. And there are an exemplary New Tech Institute across the nation, also a STEM certified school and recognized for many years now by the Indiana Department of Education. So this will do nothing but help elevate them and let them spread their goodness to more students.
Yes. And some people have asked too what this transition means for the Career Center on Lynch Road. Really, for them, it's a great situation as well for all of our programs. We have so many phenomenal programs at the Career Center. And by New Tech moving out of the wing that they were operating out of, this will allow some of our programs, after some careful planning, to expand where necessary, which is great for the Career Center as well. So it's really a win win.
Excellent point. And I failed to mention, but New Tech doesn't have district boundaries. It's not like they
That
have
is true.
a feeder program. So that's why I think it's important for people to know more about them and to allow them to have space to grow. And it's a win for everybody. Win for
Right.
New Tech, win for the Southern Indiana Career and Tech Center, And frankly, when they win, our students win. When our students win,
Right.
our community wins.
And to tag on what you were saying, if you have a middle school student to keep in mind for New Tech, it is we kind of counted it as both an innovative model and a high school because it is a full time high school. This isn't a model where you go part time to your
Right.
home school and then part time to New Tech. But it's project based learning. It's a smaller environment, so we have a lot of students there who enjoy that collaborative type work in a slightly smaller environment than a traditional high school. And if you have a middle school student, definitely something to check out if you think that is the style learner your student is.
Right. And they can also participate in extracurricular
Yes.
activities, though,
Yes, they can. Absolutely.
at what would have been their home district school.
Definitely. So it is a great situation. So, and kudos to everyone for making that move happen for our facilities, to everyone at New Tech, because that just doesn't happen without a lot of hard work to transition mid year like that. Last night in good news, we welcome new teachers that start with the second semester. We always know, of course, and are excited about new teachers at the beginning of the year, but we always have December graduates who then can be plugged in to openings in our schools. We had a couple of HR new teacher orientations over the winter break. And so, welcome to the EVSC to all these new teachers. We're happy to have them.
Love to see their smiling faces.
Absolutely, and looking forward to what they're going to accomplish with our students. Congrats are in order to one of our high school teachers who is at Early College High, which is another one of our innovative model programs and a highly successful one at that. And this goes to John Schrage, who was, and I'm going to rattle this off, the National Association of Geoscience Teachers 2023 Outstanding Earth Science Teacher in Indiana. That's a mouthful, but congrats to him.
Yeah, and certainly well deserved.
Yes, definitely. So we're really proud of him. And then last but not least, last Friday, Harrison High School did a really nice recognition for Dennis Bays. Mr. Bays spent his entire 38-year career at Harrison. He was a chemistry teacher by trade, but one of those coaches, when you think back, that just coached a little bit of everything over the years, involved with so many athletics with students during his time at Harrison. And then the last several years that he was there before retirement, served as the athletics director. So they did a nice recognition, brought in some of the people that he had the pleasure of working with over the years, and they posted some nice pictures from both then and early in his career on their social media that we shared as well. So congrats to Dennis Bays for being named a Lifetime Achievement Award winner at Harrison.
And so well deserved. I mean, you just hear his name and you know it's synonymous with excellence. You smile when you hear his name
Yeah.
because you know the impact that he had on thousands of students. So it just, I think, is an example of how an educator can have such a positive impact on thousands of students well beyond that individual's life.
Absolutely. So definitely proud of him, and thanks to Harrison for doing
bet.
that. And
Yeah.
that takes us through good news. And as we jump into this meeting, Dr. Smith, a little bit different because of the first meeting of the calendar year. So you want to talk to us about organization of the trustees?
You bet. So for the first official meeting of the year, school boards across Indiana have to do what they call an organization of the Board of School Trustees. So that means that they have to elect the president, the vice president, as well as the secretary. And then they also are required to pass an organizational resolution that basically says that they will continue to adopt the existing board policies. They will name the attorney. They will also name the treasurer and the deputy treasurer. Also state when meetings will be held. And then they also are asked to appoint that legislative liaison to the Indiana School Board Association. So that what was done right out of the gate, right after public comment. So president is President Terry Gamblin, vice president is Vice President Ragland, and then the secretary is Mike Duckworth.
No strangers to being on school board. We always say, you say frequently, how blessed we are with the leadership we have on that. And boy, they bring a wealth of experience with them. And certainly we're blessed to have that.
Absolutely. And certainly student first.
Definitely.
Yes.
So we got that taken care of last night. And then we moved into, as we always do, consent items.
So when you look at consent item 4.02, allowance of payments, a large amount this time because it was really for all of December minus I think about 1.2 million that had been approved at the first board meeting in December. And actually the only board meeting in December, but nearly $6 million, but that was 2 payrolls. It was also retroactive pay for all of our certified staff. So that made that number larger. And then also teacher appreciation grants were paid out in December. We also took health insurance. So a number of things that were included in that allowance of payments that made that number a little bit larger than normal. Item 4.03, consideration to approve the purchase of items from extracurricular accounts. So we bought some room dividers as well as a camera lens for Wrights High School. Moving on to item 4.04, consideration to approve change order number 2 for the Harrison High School facade repair project of 2023. And as is the case with most change orders, once the work began, some things were exposed that could not have been predicted. And actually, going through a house remodel right now, I can attest to how you
Things
discover
don't
things.
always go
Right.
100% to plan.
So this was change order number 2 in the amount of $12,355, and it really was to repair part of the facade that had broken away a little bit from the angle iron and the support that had been put in place to hold that up.
But and just for clarification, Dr. Smith, if you're listening to this and you hear us say change orders, in other words, when we're doing a project, when one of these things inevitably comes up, which, as you said, does happen, we can't just say, okay, let's do it. I mean, we do have to follow a formal process
Right.
to make sure the board is in line with that.
Absolutely. And it's not just the contractor saying, hey, I think we need to do this. The contractor, once they discover something, then we talk to the architect, we talk to our chief facilities officers, all the individuals in the trades that we need to. All of that has to be signed off on before it actually comes to the board for approval.
Okay, that makes sense. And then that takes us to personnel recommendations.
So 5.01, as we say at this time, those recommendations are presented and they were approved. So they are there for your perusal.
And you might even see some of those smiling faces we saw in the picture for new
I
teacher
think you might.
orientation. Definitely.
Yeah.
And that takes us into 4 action items from last night.
Yes. So item 6.01. And if you are listening to this, I would actually encourage you to go to Board Docs and click on this because I won't read all of the descriptor that there is in the public content. But this is the issuance of bonds really to provide some remedial work at both Wrights Bowl and Inlow Field. We had put down a product, a covering, and frankly, it has not performed as it was expected to perform. So it's kind of now in that legal realm. But in order to remediate that, we are entering into a request to issue bonds. So as part of that process, we have to have a public hearing, of which the first process was held in Monday's board meeting.
Okay.
The good news about this is that if this is approved, then the bonds will not increase the property taxes beyond where they are now. So we are going to be able to do this within the existing tax structure. So I think that's clearly a win.
And as one of the trustees pointed out last night, certainly we are very fortunate to have 2 historic structures with Wrights Bowl and Inlow Field, which is the stadium at Bosse High School. I mean, just 2 unique structures that not every district in the state has, and we're very fortunate to have them. We want to make sure we take great care of them.
Absolutely. I would go so far as to say they are iconic structures. I think everybody in the state of Indiana that calls themselves a football fan is aware of Wrights Bowl. It is simply such a unique facility, and I've been blessed to have attended so many events there. And when it was filled to 10,000, 11,000 people, there's not a better environment around. And then 11 years I was the band and orchestra director at Bosse, so Inlow Field has such a special place in my heart, and that too is an iconic structure, nearly 100 years old. You just don't see a covered stadium like that very often, so it's just a neat facility and worthy of this investment.
Absolutely.
Item 6.02, consideration to approve the proposed calendar for the 24-25 school year, and that was approved by the board in Monday's meeting. Was really aligned with the calendar that we had approved for this current school year, with the addition of one additional professional development day for our teachers. And we know how important that is, not only for our teachers, but also for our other staff members to get that professional training. Item 6.03, consideration to adopt policy 3140, which is a conflict of interest. That really is a combining of 2 previous policies. This is based upon the recommendation of the Indiana School Board Association. And then finally, 6.04, consideration to approve the renewal of the charter school agreement with Signature School. So Signature School has been sponsored by EVSC since its inception as a charter school. And really, the only difference in this charter or in this renewal is now we've extended this term for 15 years. Previously, state law allowed the term to be 5 years. There's an amendment in state law last year to where it would allow us to go out for 15 years. Certainly, Signature School is an outstanding school, and we are very pleased to sponsor them, and we'll do so for the next 15 years.
Okay, very good. And then at that point, we turned it over to Dr. Underwood for 4 information items.
Yes, so we have 4 finance-related items that we always provide the board on a monthly basis. The Education and Operations Fund monthly review, the summary of cash balances by fund, then the expenditure ledger summary by function and object, and then finally that 2-year analysis. And those documents are there for anyone to review, as well as being able to go back since 2008 and
That is true.
review all every document of that nature, literally thousands of documents.
Yeah, we always say we encourage you, if you're interested, look back at past, click on the attachments, look at all the documentation that goes along with what you and I talk about on all of these board recap podcasts. And then we said at the beginning, little unique aspects, a couple of them of this meeting. Next unique aspect was then we ended the first meeting and then started a separate meeting called the Board of Finance meeting. You want to just give us a brief overview on
Sure.
what that was?
Indiana law requires all public school boards in Indiana to have a finance meeting prior to January 31st of the new fiscal year. So that's what we did at the first board meeting in January of 2024. So we opened it up to roll call, then we did public comment, and there was no one that spoke about that. We put the public comment in just because of the state law,
Sure.
but certainly everyone has an opportunity to do that for
Right.
every board meeting now. And then when we go to item 12.01, election of the president and secretary of the Board of Finance, tradition has it that the board officers that serve in that capacity in the regular board officer setting then will serve as the president and secretary of the Board of Finance. So in this case, it is President Gamlin and Secretary Duckworth. And then moving on to items 13.01, presentation of the annual report of investments. Once again, this is also required by law. I don't know that this is a very informative document, but it is
But it's
there,
here if you're interested in it.
right? And it does have our cash balances and the funds that are reportable. And then item 13.02, School Corporation Report of Fiscal Indicators from the Indiana Distressed Unit of Appeals Board, also known as DUAB. And this really came about as a legal requirement when the school corporations in Gary, Indiana, as well as Muncie, found themselves in financial distress. So now there is a reporting mechanism. All of the information, I think it's about a 55-page report, comes from DUAB. It's not generated from EVSC, but it is data that goes back typically a decade. Sometimes it's as current as the last school year. Sometimes it's up to 2 years before, but it has demographic information, other information as it pertains to the financial or the fiscal health of EVSC. And I'm very pleased to say that we have a very strong fiscal health.
And every time we say that about strong fiscal health, that doesn't just happen on its own. We have extremely talented individuals. You're a big part of that as well, working with them who are truly dedicated to making sure that our finances are in good shape so that we can continue to do the work that we're charged with doing.
Absolutely.
And then that wraps up really last night. So again, a little bit unique aspect, but that ends our first meeting for 2024. I think typically about this time, we usually say this, and the information's coming out about it now. We've hit the winter weather season. Luckily,
we have.
knock on wood, so far we've had a mild winter. We know some cold temperatures are coming, so it's just a good opportunity to remind people, have a backup plan, have a plan in place in the event of a closure or a delay, so that your children are in good positions if that happens. Hopefully it won't, but we always want to remind people. And follow us on social media. Be ready for those texts, phone calls, emails. Go to websites for information. We want to make sure everybody has all the information they need should we get into winter weather this winter.
Yeah, great reminder. And, fortunately, I think in southern Indiana, if there is snow that's predicted or maybe could be on the horizon 10 days from now, you're going to hear about it.
That's true.
And you hear about it every single day. So, seriously, I think the good thing is that there really are no surprises now in the weather.
That's true.
I think for whatever reason, perhaps folks are told maybe the worst case scenario. So if you want to plan for that, you're probably not going to be surprised.
And, I'll end by saying this. While there are a team, several of us involved with that, ultimately, that decision, when you come to winter weather, always rests with the superintendent. It's probably a decision that all superintendents maybe don't love because it impacts so many people, but you don't take that decision lightly. You're always going to err on the side of caution, but that has a big impact on the community.
Certainly don't. And what I was referring to, though, was weather forecasters
Sure.
making certain that the community knows that inclement weather is on the horizon. So then, when it comes down for us making our decisions, we want to make certain that the roads to and from school are safe, our parking lots are
Right.
safe, our sidewalks are
Yes, we have a
safe.
lot of student walkers in the
Um,
city.
and we also have student drivers. So there are a lot of things to take into consideration. And as you said, those decisions are not made lightly, but we have a crew of people that start driving and start certainly the day before
Mhm.
or several days before analyzing whether we have access to many different weather forecasting agencies, frankly.
Yes.
And then the day of, about 4 o'clock in the morning, we start driving, assessing the conditions, and then we typically huddle up about 4:45, and then do a go or no go based upon the conditions that we have it, understanding that we are a county-wide
That's
school
true.
system. And unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know what it is about Interstate 64
That is true.
because I don't know if the weather knew when to stop or
Right.
start before 64 was built, but that seems to be a dividing line. So something up north, the conditions there may be vastly different
And
than what
often
we
they
have
are.
closer
You're
to the
right.
river. So
Yes.
I just appreciate everyone's understanding and
Sure.
patience and understanding we make the decisions that are in the best interest of all of our students.
Very well said. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Smith, and we will chat after the next board meeting.
Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.